Impetus, episode 115. This edition of Impetus starts off with a promo package from last week. After Greg Williams broke Johnny Fabuloso's face 2 weeks ago, Terry Delighter wanted revenge last week. The stylist entered with street clothes, ready for a fight, only to be mocked and made fun of by the Rebel. After a comedic match, Terry spat whipped cream out of his mouth after a scrutiny to the face. Don't ask. With the Rebel in high spirits, he got dropped by the appearing Johnny Fabuloso on the top of the stage, who wasn't even supposed to be at the arena. Covering his mouth, refusing to show his messed up teeth, Johnny pummeled the champion with punches, ending the show with blood on his hands. After an intro to the show, advertisements for tonight's edition of Impetus is seen. Tonight, the World Impetus Championship press conference takes place between Greg Williams and Johnny Fabuloso 1 week ahead of their pay-per-view match. Also, the Firewall, El Fuego announce their next challengers. And Jade Williams and Jacinta team up after a long hiatus against Daria and Akira. The show kicks off with some coast-to-coast action. Enter Warren Jaxon. The Coast to Coast champion enters for competition, preparing for next week's pay-per-view. Speaking of, the Hunt You Down Coast to Coast Championship match is advertised between Warren Jaxon defending against Wazzy D. Enter Charlie Finch. Warren must face another man who he has had Coast to Coast history with. With both on different paths since their last meeting, Finch must prepare to do battle against the most demonic team in Impetus history next week. The Hunt You Down advertisement is seen for Charlie Finch as his immunity team take on the Family next week. Match 1. Warren Jaxon vs Charlie Finch. With both men having different paths leading into the Hunt You Down pay-per-view, Charlie Finch and Warren Jaxon do battle in order to gain momentum in 7 days. With Warren able to come back from Finch's offense, he hopes to secure a win only for Angel to enter, once again flirting with the crowd. Looking nice, Angel hopes to distract Warren with her feminine tendencies. Warren does halt the match, but he storms to the outside, grabs Angel by the hair, and throws her in the ring, sick of her antics. As the princess shows mercy, she gets put in position for the overdrive, only for Finch to attack. With Angel looking on at Finch's power, she gets chased out of the ring and up the ramp by the bloodthirsty appearing Susan. With Angel gone and Finch distracted, it allows Warren to hit the overdrive and tap Finch out with the Indian Deathlock. Winner, Warren Jaxon. After raising his title in happiness, the scene seems to be over, only for Warren to grab the microphone. After his match, he reminds us of his title match next week against Wazzy D and believes the two have a lot more to say to each other before the Hunt You Down pay-per-view. Warren asks Wazzy D to come out to the ring for a chat. After waiting a while, Warren decides to demand an appearance from Wazzy D. Enter Wazzy D. Who it is and what it be, it's your boy, Wazzy D. The upbeat gangster is hyped up for his title match next week. Warren is glad to see Wazzy so happy, completely ignoring the fact that he pretty much forced his own friend, Barry the Bogan, out of the company. Let's be honest, Wazzy D's jealousy got the better of their friendship, and if it wasn't for Wazzy acting like a little brat after losing the Vitality match, Barry wouldn't have left. With Wazzy saddened, Warren explains that he ain't trying to make this about anything other than the title. But he brings this all up because Warren wants Wazzy to know that Hunt You Down was never his shot at the goal to begin with. It was, is, and will always be Barry the Bogan's. And until Wazzy sorts out whatever the issue is between the two of them, then neither of them are going to have a chance at defeating the all-action Jaxon for the gold. Wazzy speaks after a large silence. He didn't mean for Barry to leave and hates sharing a locker room without him. But this ain't Barry's shot. It's his. Wazzy explains that he was the one that sat in front of Warren last month and told him his truth. He was the one that told Warren that his mindset of the Coast to Coast Championship may have changed, but Wazzy's has stayed the same. Even with his friend gone from the company, Wazzy still believes that the gold belongs to him, was named after him. He's not going to allow anyone, especially not an extraordinary bastard like Warren Jaxon, to use Barry the Bogan as a way to stop his motivation. Wazzy repeats what he said last week. He is dedicating his title match to Barry the Bogan next week. And when Wazzy holds what has always been rightfully his, Warren won't be the first in line to the gold. It'll be his boy, Bazza. The challenger exits quickly with seriousness while Warren looks on, raising his gold. After a commercial break, the commentators are seen at ringside, regrouping after Warren and Wazzy's previous interaction. Despite the words between the two before their clash at Hunt You Down, the commentary team remember Angel and Susan's recent involvement, as they are set for battle next week as well. Susan will side with not only her brother Skar, but, get this, her former stalker known as Dominick Silver. The family will have themselves a reunion as Susan, Skar and Silver team up to take on Immunity next week. Let's take a look at how Dominick Silver returned to the family. A promo package of the Immunity and the family story is seen. Charlie Finch vowed to vanquish Susan's soul, believing her existence to be the cause of Skar's weakness. Believing this would benefit the chaotic creature, Finch tried to force Skar to repeat the ritual, transferring Rochelle and Susan's souls back to their respective bodies. However, the brother refused, causing Immunity to attack and have the siblings right where they wanted them, until Dominick Silver returned. The Tree Man saved the siblings, all in hopes to make amends, but not without Skar's questioning. The siblings' boiler room interaction from last week is seen. The brother was convinced that this was all a setup, all part of Dominick's plan for revenge. Skar refused to listen to Susan until being abducted backstage, taken by an unknown presence. With Susan fending off Angel, Bobby and Jerry by herself later in the night, Charlie Finch interrupted the scene with a grin. Vowing the ritual to take place again, Finch introduced a man who can make it all happen. Dominick Silver. Silver then dragged out Skar with a chloroform cloth over his mouth. Finch explains that Silver wanted to be a part of the family, only for Skar to deny him the pleasure. As a result, Finch offered Dominick a place in his own family, the Immunity family. However, the whole thing was a setup. There was no chloroform used on Skar. With Skar rising alongside his sister and former rival, Finch witnessed the book being torn up. Immunity were taken down by the reunited family, with the scene ending in a handshake between Skar and Dominick. After a family reunion last week and a loss just recently against Warren Jaxon, Charlie Finch is seen in the backstage locker room with his Immunity team. He is being comforted by Bobby, Jerry and Angel as his plans have failed yet again. The leader complains about that witch of a sister called Susan and asks if Angel is okay. With Bobby and Jerry looking after the princess too, Cortni enters the room. Finch immediately asks where the hell she was earlier tonight. Better yet, he asks where she was last week, as all of this could have been avoided if she showed up. Cortni asks why she's suddenly getting blamed for everything, as she made it very clear that she wanted nothing to do with this. Finch is surprised, asking when she ever told him this. Cortni then looks at Angel, offended that her friend apparently hasn't told them. Cortni never wanted to be a part of this supernatural crap from the beginning. Her friend was supposed to let the team know that she was going to distance herself from it until it all blew over. But it looks as though her friend wasn't loyal enough. Angel then gets offended. Loyalty? Angel has showed her loyalty to the team by sticking by them every week. While Angel is being hunted by the psycho they call Susan, Cortni is the only member of the group that hasn't been loyal. Angel thinks that all Cortni has been doing is ditching all of immunity, playing with weapons for the last 2 months, and failing at it in the process. Cortni is offended, but stays calm. She clears her throat. Putting aside the fact that she literally beat the women's champion last week, Cortni asks Angel if she really wants to talk about loyalty. With Angel suddenly now worried, Cortni looks at the confused male members of Immunity. Cortni asks Angel, whose turn is it to give loyalty to? Is it Bobby? Or was it Jerry yesterday? Or is it Finch tomorrow? With Angel silently begging for Cortni to stop, Cortni reveals that Angel has so much loyalty to give as she's been screwing all Immunity members at the same time. With Cortni intentionally spilling the tea, she leaves, leaving Immunity to awkwardly stare at each other, knowing the dreadful news. Aaron and Ryan are seen at the commentary desk in absolute shock. Angel has been banging all the Immunity members, and it's been revealed 1 week before their huge match with the family at Hunt You Down. The Immunity have started to break. Enter Jade Williams and Jacinta. Speaking of loyalty, the reformation of Jade and Jacinta showed great success last week. The question remains, who is playing who? Enter Akira. Returned from her week of absence, the challenger to the Women's Championship hopes to focus more on Hunt You Down and less on social media. Akira high-fives a baby girl in the front row. Enter Daria. The Hunt You Down pay-per-view is advertised with the Women's Championship match scene between Daria and Akira. The champion enters and looks at the same baby girl, worried of what influence Akira may have caused. Match 2. Jade Williams and Jacinta versus Daria and Akira. Both teams struggle to team together as not only do Daria and Akira not get along, but Jacinta hates to be bossed around by her employer. With Jacinta gaining control over Akira, she hopes for the tsunami finisher, just like she did last week, only for Jade to order to be tagged in yet again. Jacinta complains this time, demanding that she look great for once. Denied her opportunity, Jacinta tags in her boss. Having little trust in her partner's plan, Jade stares at Jacinta as she gets in the ring. Being set up for the powerbomb, Akira pulls Jade's legs out from underneath her and pins her successfully out of nowhere with a jackknife cover. Winners, Daria and Akira. After the match, Jade and Jacinta exit in debate, all while Akira stares at the champion she will face next week. Daria raises her title, prepared for Hunt You Down. El Fuego are then seen in a backstage hallway. The tag team champions are walking, titles in hand, ready for the Firewall, in which will determine their next challenges at Hunt You Down. The Firewall is up next. After a commercial break, promotions for tonight are shown. The Brotherhood begins. Skar and Dominick take on Empire tonight. As the family forms, immunity seems to break. Before the scheduled Firewall segment, we see a backstage locker room segment between Jade Williams and a frustrated Jacinta. Jacinta is complaining about their recent loss, telling Jade that if she just let her win the match, then they wouldn't have lost. Jade claims that they wouldn't have lost if Jacinta had simply done as she asked. Jacinta argues back, with Jade asking who the boss is here. This alliance isn't like the last time they teamed. Jade isn't some lonely crony who has no idea how the business works. Jade claims to be a future women's champion. And at this rate, it won't be by Jacinta's help. With Jacinta about to rebuttal, Kelly Sales and Jackie Sky are giggling in the distance, clearly happy to see the two bickering. Jacinta asks what the hell they're laughing at, claiming that they wish they had an ounce of talent that she and Jade do. With Jade rolling her eyes, Jacinta backs herself and Jade up, claiming that they'll embarrass Kelly and Jackie on any day of the week. Kelly and Jackie state that they've been hoping to step up with the revolution of Impetus and offer a challenge. Jack and Kelly want to face Jacinta and Jade in tag team action next week at Hunt You Down. With Jade having other plans, Jacinta accepts. Kelly and Jackie leave with Jade irritated with her employee. The Firewall. Enter El Fuego. Through the fire and the flames, El Fuego are lit up once again. El Fuego speak about their current title reign and how not even the doppelganger pendejos called Matariamas and that azada desagrable known as Jillian can stop it. They said that they would be revealing their new challenges by ways of the Firewall, and they will do so right now, amigos. However, El Fuego want a little more competition, a little more fire igniting from the tag team division. So, rather than the Firewall choosing one team, it's going to be choosing 3 for next week. Hunt You Down will host a huge Fatal 4-Way Elimination Tag Team Championship match. The Firewall spins its virtual wheel. The first to be revealed are those perros known as Matariamas. The second are the best pranksters in the game, behind El Fuego of course, Triple J. And the third and final team are the Beach Boy bitches known as Empire. El Fuego can't wait for the huge match next week and are about to end the segment only to be jumped yet again by Matariamas. Led by Jillian Day, the impersonators chuck Listio out of the ring and hit the Bomberos on Cinxia. With Jillian picking up the tag titles, she hopes to hand them over to Matariamas, only to be attacked by Triple J. Flying in with double crossbodies, Triple J have huge momentum as they witness their former manager complain in the corner. With Jillian whining and still holding the gold, Jack and Jimmy approach with smiles, only for the nasty hoe to exit the ring in fear, dropping the gold. Triple J look to hold the titles high in the air, only to be stopped by Empire, who knocked Jimmy down and hit Jack with the thunder from down under. Empire looked dominant until Matariamas return and knock them down. Jillian hands her new team the titles and smiles as they raise them. With Matariamas turning around, the action is far from over as Listio and Cinxia springboard their way in with double drop kicks, sending their enemies out of the ring. Keeping up on either side of Jillian, El Fuego grin while staring at her. She hopes to run away, only to be grabbed and whipped toward the ropes for the fireball. However, she is pulled out of the ring by her new team, saving her from the finisher. As all teams recuperate, the match is set for Hunt You Down, a huge Fatal 4-Way Tag Team Eliminators match at the pay-per-view. With the chaos being calmed, we then transition to Vipernip backstage in his office. The president is typing frantically on his desk until Chris Vortex enters. Vipernip welcomes him to his job evaluation. An intimidated Vortex is told to sit down, allowing a confident Vipernip to pace around his chair and then Chris himself, telling him that he has made quite a statement in Impetus since descending from the quota. I mean, he changed his entire lifestyle, becoming a vegan, and strived to achieve more than his former glory. Both impressive goals, yet it's not hard to see which one actually failed. Vortex has not only lost a lot of matches, but seemingly a lot of friends, as the only reason he has his own locker room is because nobody wants to be a part of one with him. Chris's attempts to force veganism upon the world and to rid his reputation as the weak link of the quota has failed. And this whole finding your own tag partner gimmick, I mean, it's getting ridiculous. He loves Aaron Cutler, but the fact that he was Chris's only option is saying something. Chris has been on a slippery slope and a downward spiral for a while, and last week, Vipernip came to the decision that Chris should be let go from the company. With Chris about to complain, Vipernip claims that, however, he came up with another idea. Vipernip actually feels some sympathy for Chris, explaining that he probably should have put a little more effort into finding him a tag team partner. As a result, the president has found Vortex the best tag team partner possible, a partner that will rid Chris of his losing streak. With Chris excited, Vipernet welcomes in Sven The Janitor. An old man with overalls, a mustache, and a dirty mop enters the room. Vipernet introduces the arena cleaner, who hails from Sweden and can't wait to see the two team up. In fact, their debut tag match is up next. Chris is stunned and insulted. How the hell is he supposed to tag with this zombie? Vipernet has no idea what Chris's problem is at all, as he, believe it or not, has solved it. With the vegan shocked, Vipernet claims that he can't lose with a dominating, athletic specimen like Sven. Actually, if Chris does find a way to lose, then he really does deserve to be fired. With Chris stunned, Vipernet makes it official. If Chris loses the upcoming tag team match, he will be fired. Vipernet rushes Chris out with delight, with Sven following slowly, limping like the old man he is. Aaron Cutler and Ryan Walsh are laughing at the commentary desk, asking what they have just seen, and what they are apparently about to see. Chris Vortex's career is on the line while teaming up with Sven The Janitor. Enter Chris Vortex and Sven The Janitor. Shoving the slow old man down the ramp, Chris is in fear for his career, while Sven holds his trusty mop and back in pain. With Chris helping the decrepit janitor to the ring, the debuting team await their opponents. Enter the Condemned Nation. As Mark and Jarvis are led to the ring by Dylan Dark, Chris tries to hype up the crippled janitor, trying his best to appear ready for combat. Match 3, the Condemned Nation versus Chris Vortex and Sven The Janitor. Chris struggles to help the aching janitor to the apron, allowing him to get beaten down by Dylan's children. Mark and Jarvis show their tag team prowess once again on Chris, impressing their emperor. Before hitting the wheelbarrow neckbreaker combination, Dylan stands on the apron and orders his team to stop. Instead, he wants them to deliver the move to the old man. Much like Mark Emil did to his own father, Dylan wants him to do the same thing to the janitor. Dragging the helpless Chris to his own corner, they tag the janitor in with Chris's limp hand. The janitor slowly gets in, staring down the evil team. Mark and Jarvis are surprised to see the janitor take the strap off his overalls, ready for a fight. With the mop still in his hand, the janitor hands it to the official, preparing for something awesome. The official places it to the side, only to have the old man kick Jarvis in the nuts. The old man laughs, but not for long, as he is struck down by Mark. Ordered by an embarrassed Dylan, Mark hopes to suplex the janitor, only for the old man to land on his feet and tag in Vortex. Chris comes in with pain but on fire, taking down the children. However, Chris fails once again and gets countered, taking heat. Dylan demands his team to finish it while they can. With Chris in position for the double team move, Chris holds onto the ropes and fights back, starting a comeback and knocking down both opponents. With Chris crawling for a tag, the confused old man witnesses a beer being spilled at ringside by a fan. Committed to keeping his arena clean, the janitor ignores Chris while jumping for a tag and grabs his trusty mop to clean the area. Chris's confusion turns to outrage as he yells at his partner for cleaning. Chris reminds Sven that his career is on the line and tells the dumb geriatric dumbass to get back to the ring. Sven can't hear due to his old age, making Chris scream with rage, telling him to just drop dead like the zombie that he is. The janitor stares at Chris while raising the mop, dropping it to the floor. He then holds his mustache and rips it off. With Chris stunned, the janitor rips prosthetic makeup off his face to reveal Captain Warwick? Kipton has returned. Chris barely has any time to react though, as he gets hit with the wheelbarrow neckbreaker, only for Kipton to jump right in the ring and hit Mark with the return of the springboard forearm, the Kiptonite. Super kicking Jarvis out of the ring, Kipton drags the lifeless Chris on the legal Mark and dives on Dylan on the outside, giving the win to Chris. Winners, Chris Vortex and the returning Kipton Warwick. We then see Greg Williams prepared for the traditional press conference as he walks through the parking lot. Greg Williams is seen with a band-aid on his forehead, still feeling the effects from last week's attack. Greg is ready to talk about Hunt You Down at the press conference coming up. Still to come, the World Impetus Championship press conference between Greg Williams and Johnny Fabuloso. Also, the Brotherhood begins. Skar and Dominick take on Empire. What must Immunity be thinking? Enter Steven Dreadful. Entering for the match that was supposed to take place last week, Dreadful enters with cockiness. A replay from last week is shown. With Steven set for battle against Freddy Cornell, the Killers of the Revolution attacked the Essential member as he walked to the ring. With Josh Alba coming out for the save, KOTR escaped with a successful hit-and-run attack. Enter Freddy Cornell. With Josh Alba, CJ and Gary Federline banned from ringside, we should have an official match and an official winner. Match 4. Steven Dreadful versus Freddy Cornell. The two trade in multiple equal contests, only to have Freddy outsmart Steven multiple times. With the cowboy frustrated throughout the match, he hopes to hit a double axe handle from the top, only to get caught in an ankle lock by Freddy. With CJ and Gary banned from saving him, Steven eventually must tap out. Winner, Freddy Cornell. Freddy releases the hold to celebrate after the match, only to see Steven grasp his foot in pain. Unlacing his boots in agony, Steven hopes for relief, only for Freddy to lock the ankle lock back on. Steven taps out yet again, writhing in pain. This causes CJ and Gary to storm out in hopes to save their partner. However, Freddy now exits the ring, much like KOTR did last week. With Josh Alba joining his partner on stage, the Essentials laugh at the irritated Gary and CJ, all while Steven complains about his poor little ankle. Still to come tonight, the World Impetus Championship press conference takes place between Greg Williams and Johnny Fabuloso. What will the Rebels say about the attack from last week? However, up next, the Brotherhood begins. Skar and Dominick take on Empire. What must the broken Immunity be thinking? Impetus then heads into a commercial break. With Impetus returning, the Hunt You Down pay-per-view match card is advertised. The Essentials will take on the Killers of the Revolution. KOTR hope to reclaim their dignity. And the Coast to Coast title is on the line as Warren Jaxon takes on Wazzy D. Will a dedication to Barry the Bogan motivate or distract Wazzy D? Also, the women's title is on the line as Daria defends against Akira. The anti-aesthetic Akira hopes to become champion as her natural self. And the Impetus Tag Team Championships are on the line in a fatal four-way elimination match. El Fuego defend their titles against Triple J, Matariamas, and Empire in a fatal four-way contest. Will Jillian Day lead yet another team to Tag Team Gold? Also, Jade Williams and Jacinta will take on Jackie Sky and Kelly Sales in tag team action. Jade and Jacinta seem to be playing each other, but who will screw who first? And the World Impetus Championship is on the line against Greg Williams and Johnny Fabuloso. With their press conference later on tonight, who will be heading into the pay-per-view with motivation, and will Johnny even be able to compete with braces? Also, Immunity take on the Family in a 6-person tag team match. Susan, Skar, and Silver team for the first time ever. And speaking of the Family, enter Empire. Ready for their tag team title match next week, Corey and Blake hope for momentum. Enter Skar and Dominick Silver. For the first time ever, Skar and Silver enter together. Empire are petrified as they have no idea what to expect. With Immunity's unity falling to pieces, Skar and Silver's looks to be perfect. Match 5, Empire vs Skar and Dominick Silver. The new formation of Skar and Silver make a dominating team as they almost have fun trying to outdo each other in performing powerful moves. During the dominance though, Immunity then appear on the screen in the backstage hallway. However, unlike their previous appearances on the Tron, Immunity are seen from a distance, arguing. Skar and Dominick halt their offense to view Finch, Bobby and Jerry argue about their ownership of Angel. Not a word can be heard, but the reactions from the three is obvious as Angel then appears in the middle of them, trying to explain herself. Finch, Bobby and Jerry then walk away in separate locations, leaving Angel to cry at the drama she has placed herself in. The scene ends with the match still going. Due to the distraction, Skar and Silver suffer for only about 2 seconds until countering, allowing Dominick to hit his package piledriver for the win. Winners, Skar and Dominick Silver. Despite their rocky start, Skar appreciates Dominick's efforts and shakes his hand yet again, patting him on the back for his efforts. The Family are cementing themselves as a great force, while Immunity's chemistry has faded 1 week before Hunt You Down. A shot of Johnny Fabuloso's locker room door is then seen. It opens to see Terry Delighter all suited up, ready for the press conference. Walking off in confidence, the commentators await the arrival of Johnny Fabuloso. As up next, the World Impetus Championship press conference takes place. Greg Williams and Johnny Fabuloso have one last discussion before the pay-per-view. Viper is seen on the stage with the press conference already set up. He welcomes all to the traditional press conference for the World Impetus Championship match at next week's Hunt You Down pay-per-view. The president introduces the challenger and the man that has made quite an impact not only for the pay-per-view but to his dental plan. Please welcome Johnny Fabuloso. Enter Terry Delighter. Strutting on stage, Terry professionally shakes hands with a hopefully forgiving president, apologizing for the lack of challenger. With Viper raising his eyebrow in confusion, Terry sits down, proud of his solo entrance. Viper halts all questions until both men have entered the press conference. As a result, he introduces the World Impetus Champion, the Rebel, Greg Williams. Enter Greg Williams. Greg enters holding his world title, glaring at a sniggering Terry Delighter and holding something behind his back. The Rebel walks past the delightful one and places a can of whipped cream in front of the stylist, teasing him of their match from last week. With Viper about to open the floor for questions, Terry speaks straight away, happy to have all the attention on him to explain the reason behind Johnny's absence. After the humiliation that was placed upon Johnny 2 weeks ago, he has been advised not to compete and appear on any episode of Impetus until the pay-per-view. Johnny was supposed to be home resting last week, but was far too angry, far too furious with the pain and the suffering, both physical and mental, that Greg Williams put him through. He was so furious that he decided to attack. Terry promises Greg that he needn't be so cautious of the same thing happening tonight, as Johnny, much like he should have been last week, is not here this evening. After Terry's explanation, Viper opens up the floor. Terry and Greg are posed simple questions regarding the pay-per-view and continue to answer until Johnny Fabuloso is seen entering through the media and the press. Catwalking his way through the flashbulbs, Johnny has made an impact yet again. With Greg rolling his eyes and leaning his head on his hand, he seems bored as Johnny struts his little tuchus on stage. Johnny soaks up the spotlight and decides to stand on the table, gaining more attention from the press. During his entrance, Johnny has had his mouth closed shut, not wanting to reveal his braces, much like last week. Standing on the table with all eyes on him now, he decides to point at his mouth and smile, revealing the braced monstrosity. With flashes of light filling the stage, Johnny then speaks. He talks to Greg with seriousness, claiming that the past 2 weeks have been horrible for him. The damage Greg has done to his face, dignity, and career is unforgivable and is worthy of another beatdown much like the one he received last week. However, 7 days since busting Greg open, Johnny has had time to think. At first, he hated Greg for breaking his face. Why wouldn't he? When you have a face like this, a simple pimple could ruin one's life. But now he has nothing but gratitude. With Greg, Vipenip, and even Terry confused, Johnny explains that before his title match against Greg 2 weeks ago, the world title was nothing but a prop to him. Nothing but an item of jewelry to make him even more stunning than he is. However, now, with his modeling career fading and beauty halted, he has no other desire than to win that title for nothing but vengeance. Revenge is boiling in his blood, and the Fabulous One can't wait to make Greg bleed once again. He can't wait to strip away Greg's dignity and in return strip away his World Impetus Championship. Before, the title was about fame, fortune, and publicity, and now it's about showing that you can achieve your dreams without beauty, without fame, without having train tracks stuck to your face. Hunt You Down will be the night where the ugly people win. Johnny embraces the flashes of light once again and hugs his manager with pride. However, Greg isn't convinced. He asks the stylist and the model if they're happy, satisfied. Did their plan work out the way they wanted it to? He tells the world not to be fooled by the Fabulous One's chicanery, as this whole segment, much like his pursuit of the World Impetus Championship, is all for publicity, all for show. Typical models. When there's dozens of cameras and media attention, trust them to make all eyes gravitate toward them. Greg gives Johnny credit for the effort he's put in to his first ever press conference. And that attack from last week, genius. But being the world champion for a while, Greg has a good grasp on how these press conferences work. When the media is here, you need to captivate them, you need to interest them, you need to shock them. Wiggling your hips through the press is a great rookie attempt to get some clout, but Greg wants to show Johnny how a world champion gets true mainstream attention. Greg then stands on his desk and pulls his pants down, showing the crowd a full moon. Drawn in his buttocks are the faces of Johnny and Terry placed on each cheek, kissing while surrounded by a love heart. This is even more hilarious as Greg is wearing a frickin' G-string. With constant flashbulbs hitting the stage, Johnny and Terry are disgusted and exit with humiliation and anger. With Vipenip rubbing his head with embarrassment, Greg hugs his boss, with his ass still out, raising his title as the show goes off the air. Hunt You Down is next week, and Greg Williams has made a interesting statement.